Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. If you're joining us for the very first time, maybe on an NRB station, we welcome you. We encourage you to stick with us and find out how we can help you be a good and faithful steward with everything that the Lord has trusted you with. Specifically, we talk about defunding darkness, how to be a biblically responsible investor, to honor God, to put God first in your portfolio. We call that defunding darkness. And then we encourage you to fund the light, to be an obedient, joyful, and generous giver. So stay tuned as we navigate through some financial issues today on Financial Issues. So raising a child is getting more and more expensive, like so many things in this country. You know, just the other day we were talking about how, the official number for inflation for prices is that it's 20% more, 20 to 22% more expensive today than it was 3 years ago in general. But we've talked about specific examples that give a much different indication that inflation is really more like 50 to 100% for some things. And now we're hearing that it's getting more and more expensive to raise children. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, this is a bummer for us personally, Shana, having children of our own, and I know many of our audience members have children or perhaps grandchildren, so you're grieving for your children who are raising those children right now. But there was research recently published. It reveals blue states account for the 5 most expensive states in which to raise children currently, Shana. So Massachusetts tops the list, about $35,800 a year. That's nearly double the national average. That's what it costs to raise, I think it's one child. It costs nearly $440,000 more to raise a child in Massachusetts than it does in Mississippi,
wow,
which is the least expensive. Yeah, seriously. The annual cost to raise a child in Hawaii is just over $35,000, and that includes around $19,000, almost $20,000 for childcare. Third, fourth, and fifth expensive states are Connecticut at right around $33,000, Colorado $30,000, and New York around $29,500. The cost of childcare, Shanna, jumped nearly 20%, as you had mentioned, except that was between 2016 and 2021. So you can only imagine what it's jumped since then. The average family is spending about $237,000 over the course of 18 years to raise a child, and that's a figure that excludes the cost of college. That's a lot of money, Shanna, to bring children into the world. It is a lot of money.
Yeah. I guess that's why the left has the answer for abortion.
Yeah, right. Yeah, let's just kill them. Yeah.
They want to tell people that, just like Kamala Harris has said on several occasions, as she talked about what a blessing abortion was for her life, so that it didn't wreck her future and her career. And thank God, because now we have her as vice president.
Oh, man, it really is just awful.
That is not what the scripture says, right? Psalm 127, 3 through 5 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb, a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate." So the word of God is true, and we believe it 100%. And that's why you can see that the agenda of abortion is darkness, because it is in direct opposition to the word of God that would have you snuff out a life so that your life isn't inconvenienced in any way. And so that's one of the reasons we encourage you to fund the light, to be joyful and generous givers. And one way that you can push back against this darkness of abortion is to support organizations like Preborn. Preborn is one of the partners of this ministry, and you can find out more about their work on our website, financialissues.org.
Shana, speaking of that, it's a great reminder of just the beautiful difference of Christianity versus the other worldviews. The other worldviews, especially the one that's propagated by the left in our country today, they espouse the belief of it's your life for mine. So you sacrifice so I can benefit, and we see that with the abortion movement. Absolutely, the Christian worldview is my life for yours. So I'm the one who sacrifices so that you can be raised up. And ministries like Preborn are doing that. They're sacrificing their time, sometimes even their safety. As we've heard reports that they got firebombed at certain places last year for the lives of babies. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, this world can really be deceiving, and that's one of the things that the Bible tells us is going to happen in the end times, is that deception will prevail even more and more, and the world can really hide the things that are deceiving. They can really make them look good to us, right? Yeah. It's a good thing to not have your baby and go to college and get a good job, and so what? You can do what?
Yeah, right. So
have more money later to get married and have a family.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just delay what you should have done all along. Yeah, totally.
It is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well said, Shana. Yep. Well, we had a couple questions come in here, Shana. If you wanted to get to some of these here.
Let's do it.
There's a particular theme with a lot of these questions here. So there was a Dutch auction tender offer for CS65. So Steve, Sherry, Carlton, Dan, Barbara, and William all had questions about this specific tender offer. What can you tell us about this, Shannon? What advice can you give to all these partners who are wondering?
Yeah, so, this is a common thing. It happens, often where companies want to buy back some of their stock. And so that's what this is. It's if you own CS65, now CS65 is code for a publicly traded company that is on our, currently on our buy list. So we won't say that over the air because we don't want anybody to have any confusion or just, hear a certain thing and maybe go out and buy something not understanding the strategy. But you can become a partner with us and you'll be able to see everything that's on the list. And, as a partner, when things come out, when companies merge or get bought out or have tender offers, if there's a reason to sell, we alert you by way of an email alert and or putting things on the partner side of the website. So for this particular one, I don't think that there's anything to do here. This company's stock is trading for over $1,000, and the tender offer is you can tell them that you want to sell your shares for a minimum of $850 a share to a maximum of $925 a share. So, I can't really think of a good reason to sell for $925 when the stock price is well over $1,000. So, nothing to do here. I just would ignore the offer.
Good stuff, Shanna. At least one more here before the end of this break. Walter is 75, using the Timothy Plan 65 to 75 model, which for some of our new listeners, that's one of the asset allocation models that we offer. He says, I've income from Social Security, a pension, joint brokerage IRA, and Roth accounts. I have money in every position. The percentage completes range from 96% for positions that have been in the model for a long time to 6% for shorter ones. Last month, you recommended not adding any new money. What do you recommend now?
Yeah, if you're building a portfolio, I would be cautiously optimistic. We did put up a note yesterday on the partner side of the website indicating that same thing as well. I wouldn't be in a hurry. The markets have hit all-time highs for all three stock indices, the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. I am cautiously bullish. I think there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of money in money market that needs to find an efficient home. The Fed starts to cut rates. Money market and CDs look less and less attractive. So all of that is argument that the markets could go higher, but we are at a really fully valued point here. So I would say you could still continue to hold off a little bit.
Awesome. Folks, just a reminder, that's one of the great things that we offer here at the ministry is what we're doing right now. We offer the Ask Shana portal where you can ask any financial question that you want and get your answer taken care of by Shana. It's a great thing there. So consider becoming a partner today for $132 a year.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I think we got to take a break. Well, we hope that you'll stick with us because we're just going to take a short break and then we're going to come back with more financial issues. We're going to be talking about stewardship and getting to some more of these financial issues questions. I'm your host, Shana Burt. We'll be back right after this.
Samaritan is direct sharing of medical needs. So every month, members are sending their checks or maybe electronic payment directly to another member that had a medical need. And so that helps it be much more affordable because it cuts out the middleman, and it also provides incredible flexibility for our members to make healthcare choices that they want to make, their healthcare dollars spent the way they want to spend it. So it's not their employer, it's not the government, it's them making the decision.
So I guess it is a little bit of a financial stewardship decision because, you know, I personally have been using health sharing for a long time, and when I got off of the treadmill of traditional health insurance and switched to health sharing, my family saved a lot of money on our monthly premium costs just to stay protected.
Head over to financialissues.org/highlights to catch the complete interview and learn more about Samaritan Ministries.
What I love about being at Timothy Plan is the history that we have. We turned 30 this year, and it's just exciting to think that we have had 30 years now where we have impacted the culture for the better and helping people understand and knowing what they own. Timothy Plan has a team that is doing the research full-time, headed up by Doug Alley, who takes the lead on that department. And he is looking at these companies on a very regular basis. We listen to our shareholders. They call in with questions. We do a lot of research, and we try as best we can to handle this situation because we know that it affects not just our corporation, but our families and our children.
That was so helpful. You know, at the end of the day, what biblically responsible investing really is just honoring God.
Watch the full interview on our website. Visit financialissues.org/highlights to learn more about Timothy.
The preborn banner.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, folks. Hey, I want to apologize there. I forgot to mention Alyssa on Ask Shana also was wondering about that tender offer for CS65. So, Alyssa, go ahead back and listen to the podcast when you have the time. Shana answered that question very thoroughly for you in the first segment. And all of you, if you want to get our full show podcast, maybe you can only listen to the half-hour version of the show, but you can find the full version of the show. We do an hour-long show every single day, Monday to Friday. You can check us out on any podcast platform. Best place to get us is the FISM app. That's really the safest place, Shana. We won't get kicked from there, Lord willing. But there's always a chance we get kicked from one of these other woke-owned podcast platforms. But you won't have to worry about that with the FISM app. So get the full show there. It's good stuff.
Yeah. In the 25 years of our ministry history, we've been on a lot of different platforms. Yeah. And so make sure that you get the phone app. That way that if we're ever just all of a sudden not on the radio station or the TV station that you usually listen to, you won't lose us.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Shana, let's take a look here at our stewardship verse of the day. A great foundational verse for our ministry is Matthew 25:23. This is Jesus' parable about the master and his servants. And it says, his master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I'll set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And I think, Shana, there's nothing better for us. Maybe there's few things better, I would say, than this sure hope and certain promise of hearing Jesus say to us, well done, good and faithful servant. I actually think that probably is the best thing we can hear because that's wrapped up in the promise of the gospel that we're redeemed and then we live a life pleasing to him after that. And it's both a future promise, Shana, but it's also an immediate promise, meaning if we're faithful with the little he's given us now, he'll bless us with more to steward. So it's good
more
stuff.
Responsibility. Yep. There's that theme again. Yeah. So being faithful with a little means that we get more to manage while we're here. And it also means that we have rewards in heaven, you know, because one day there is going to be a test. We're going to meet the master face to face. There's several parables in the Bible that depicts this. And the good thing about having more in eternity is that we'll have more crowns in heaven to toss at the feet of Jesus because, man, when I meet Jesus face to face, I don't want to be standing there empty-handed.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's it's such a good reminder, Shana, that all of this is only possible, and it's not just possible, but it is guaranteed through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross.
Yeah, that's the first step.
Beautiful gift of grace for us. Let's get to a teachable moment here, Shana. We talk a lot about our twofold mission here at the ministry, defunding darkness and funding the light. Let's focus on that first one here, defunding darkness. So the financial strategy we put forth is really based around this concept of biblically responsible investing. We use the shorthand term BRI. If you hear us say BRI, that's what we're referring to as biblically responsible investing. It's values-based investing, but it's based entirely on the clear and true teaching of Scripture. So Shana, take us deeper here. What is biblically responsible investing, and why should every Christian investor do biblically responsible investing?
Well, the heart of biblically responsible investing is wanting to honor God with everything that we have. And so, before, when I first heard the term biblically responsible investing, I thought, well, what is that? I mean, what does it mean? Does it even matter? Is it even possible? And, through a long prayerful journey, the Lord convinced me that, yes, it is possible. And basically what we're doing is we're looking at companies and how they deploy company money. So, we're not necessarily looking for a company that has a Christian CEO. We're not trying to find Chick-fil-A's or Hobby Lobbies to invest in. We are just simply asking companies to do what they do, to do it well, to operate in excellence, and to return value to the shareholder and just stay out of the culture war. There's many CEOs and management of companies that feel very strongly about their causes, and they're not the same causes that you and I want to support, like, pushing back against the darkness of abortion and speaking the truth about the LGBTQ lie that we were made by God. He determined whether we were male or female. We don't get to choose our gender, and we don't get to choose the rules about our sexuality. God made us, and he got to set all of those rules in the very beginning. So we just want companies who are going to do what they do, operate in excellence, and stay out of the culture war.
And Shana, how does BRI, being a values-based investing method, how does it differ from the other ones? We hear about faith-based investing, we hear about ESG. How does BRI stand out compared to these?
Well, it's sort of the opposite in the strategy. Like you just heard me say, with biblically responsible investing, we ask the CEOs and the management just to run a good company and stay out of the culture war. The other side asks them to engage. You should be using shareholder dollars to support our cause, which is probably not the same as many of your customers or shareholders. And the values are much different. There are some overlapping values, like the E in ESG stands for environmental and social and governance issues. So, yes, we believe in being a good steward of the earth and taking care of the earth, but we don't worship the earth. We don't put that ahead of everything else. We don't worship Mother Nature. That's a whole different set of values. Social issues, for us, we believe in life. We believe in protecting life. The social issues for the ESG are that you have reproductive rights, the opposite of what we believe in Christianity. So, and then the governance has to do all with this diversity, equity, and inclusion garbage that the left is trying to force on corporations. They believe in, as Kamala Harris would put it, equal outcomes, making everyone's outcome the same. We believe in equal opportunities, so there's
vastly different.
There's a vastly different, vastly different difference between BRI and ESG.
Absolutely. What about faith-based investing, Shana? That sounds great. I hear a lot of Christian organizations claim that they do faith-based investing. Is it the same thing as BRI?
No. It can include BRI, but I really don't even see how you can do faith-based investing without biblically responsible investing, without screening out your investments, because, you know, I don't even know what the faith-based decisions are if they don't include biblically responsible investing. BRI is a conviction of the heart. It starts with wanting to honor God in the way that you invest.
Yeah. Now, let's answer some critics here, Shana, because some might say, okay, it's great to be faithful to God with my money, but it's not so great when it comes to building wealth. I want to invest to be able to build wealth. How would you respond to that criticism?
Well, they're just wrong. I don't I guess I need to explain. But, you know, they're wrong about biblically responsible investing not having great potential to build wealth, because, you know, there's only about 10% of publicly traded companies that fail screens for biblically responsible investing. That means that there's still 90% of publicly traded companies that we can invest in. And there's many studies that have been done on biblically responsible portfolios as compared to their counterpart. Like, let's say that you take an index fund, the S&P 500, and you compare it to a biblically responsible fund that has the non-BRI companies screened out. You don't see much difference at all in returns. So, you know, they're wrong about that. A lot of people think, well, you know, if I can't invest in the FANG stocks, if I can't invest in Facebook and Microsoft and Apple and Tesla, then I'm just going to, you know, miss out on all of the return. And they'll even go so far as to justify, you know, well, if I invest in these companies and make a big return, then I can give more to the Lord. Well, I don't buy into that train of thought. How can I offend God and then say, well, it's all going to be okay because I'm just going to give him more money?
Right.
It's
God,
just...
here's my blood money that I purchased on the murder of babies. Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
And that even reminds me, Shanna, the scripture says obedience is better than sacrifice. We need to obey God first and trust him to bring those returns. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and it's wrong to think that acquiring wealth is superior to honoring God. It's all about the intent of the heart. So if my intent is to honor God and I end up with a inferior return than if I had invested in all of it, which I don't think is necessarily a condition for investing in a biblically responsible portfolio, but if I did, I would be happy to settle for a lower return, knowing that I put God first.
Amen. Reminds me of a clip we played recently on the show where Dan was talking about, the idea of taking wealth later, meaning eternal wealth and glory, or taking it now. And I think he says, I'll take it in glory. That'll suit me fine. It's far better in glory than it is now, Shanna. That's really good. And, you know, it did remind me as you were talking there also, this is just my opinion, but I feel like one of the marks we can look at in a healthy company is a company that doesn't waste its money on the DEI stuff and the culture war stuff, but actually focuses its money on just making a good product. I think that's the mark of a good company. So it makes sense why the biblically responsible method works, you know. How
many people do you know of now? We don't have DEI training in financial issues.
No, thankfully we do not. No. We have biblical training here, but not DEI training. Yeah.
Right. And how many times have you ever heard someone say, oh, I'm so excited to go to work today because we're doing DEI training? Right.
Exactly.
I mean, it lowers morale. It's just crazy.
Yeah. It absolutely is. So, Shanna, what do we ask of these companies? Or more specifically, what do we require of them? If we're going to invest our money in them, what are we asking them to do?
Do a good job.
Yeah.
If you make burgers, make the best burger that you can make. If you make cars, make the best car that you can make, and just stay out of the culture war. Yep. Operate in excellence, do what you do, return value to shareholders, and let culture warriors, individuals, fight the culture war with our own money.
Yep. And how do we screen out these companies who violate those requirements for our new audience?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple process. We start with 2 screening tools. One of them is on our website and is actually available to anybody who wants to use it. So you just go to financialissues.org, click on the resources tab, and then drop down to evaluator. All you have to do is put in your email address, and then you can put in the ticker symbols for your stocks, your mutual funds, or your ETFs, and you can get a report as to whether or not they are clean. So I would encourage you to do that. And then once you get the report, just pray through it. You know, ask the Lord, what do you do about this? And hopefully he will lead you back to the Financial Issues website, where we equip you with a totally biblically responsible investment strategy, and you can clean up your portfolio. Well, if you're listening to a short version of the show, we encourage you to get the full version by getting our phone app or going to our website to watch the rest of the program, or on your favorite podcast service, Apple or Spotify. For the rest of you, we're just going to take a short break, and we're going to come back with more financial issues, so don't go anywhere.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partners today.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that, but we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
It's one thing to be against abortion, but it's another thing, quite frankly, to do something about it. And we're doing that with compassion, with the love and gospel of Jesus Christ, with cribs and car seats and maternity clothes and diapers and FML baby food and the whole shooting match. What do they need so that they can choose life? Last year, 58,000, small city, 58,000 babies saved because of what the listeners of Financial Issues and have done.
I'm so grateful for the work that Preborn does.
We're not just defunding darkness, but we're pushing forth the gospel of light to these young women. And, love can be expressed emotionally, but we're expressing it. Your listeners are practically through the alternatives to abortion that we provide through ultrasound to these girls every day.
Watch the full interview on our website. Visit financialissues.org/highlights to learn more about Preborn.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Good to be here with you. Thanks for joining us on the program today. We've got a lively chat, as usual, going on financialissues.org/live. So you got to join us over there. It's great to see all of you on the chat. Also want to say hello to our Facebook audience. I don't always acknowledge you all, but good to see Sue. I see The Chapel from Columbus, Ohio on Facebook, Alvin on Facebook, and Alejandro, good friend on Facebook. Great to see you guys. Thanks for joining us there today. If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble as well, feel free to say hello. And our phone lines are open, so you can call in. 610-363-1110 is the number to call in. Hey, folks, we're seeing the powers that be in our country trying to attack and take over our freedoms in virtually every area, from religious freedom to financial freedom and also our health freedoms. And that's why you need to check out Samaritan Ministries. If you were watching on our TV feed, you just saw a wonderful testimony from a pastor and his family who use this wonderful health sharing ministry that we also use here at Financial Issues. So you got to check them out. They give you all of the tools that you need and also the freedom that you need to be able to choose your healthcare provider. So check them out today, SamaritanMinistries.org. Christians sharing one another's medical bills is really, really a good thing. So make sure that you do that today, SamaritanMinistries.org. You can find their link on our website. A couple news headlines to get to here, folks. The big one, of course, and I'm answering in part a question that John put up here asking about what the Fed said yesterday, because I can't understand the lingo that Jerome Powell speaks. I'm with you there, John. It's tough to understand sometimes. But we did get that Fed Reserve announcement yesterday, the June meeting, and no surprise, the Fed did hold the line at interest rates between that 5.25 and 5.5 benchmark. That's been the norm now for almost a year. I think the last time they raised rates or changed rates at all, in fact, was August of 2023. So we're approaching that 1 year mark where it stayed the same. The outlook now, folks, for rate cuts in 2024 has been revised by the Fed to 1. So we'll have to see what happens there. Our position at the ministry still, as you heard Shana mention, I believe it was yesterday's program, our position still very much is that we think that the Fed will find a way to cut interest rates before the November election. Of course. Now, they have, I think, 2 more opportunities to do that before the November election, but I still think that that's very, very probable. The central bank policymakers noted that there's been modest further progress toward that 2% inflation objective. So, John, to your point there hasn't been much change in what the Fed's been saying. They've been saying this for months now, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I agree with you. Powell noted at the press conference afterwards that the central bank does not yet have the confidence to cut rates even as inflation has eased from its peak levels. We've been hearing this over and over again, folks, of course. You can almost understand why the Fed is saying this, because they're just trying to keep some level of control over what really is in danger of and perhaps has even already become an out-of-control situation with the printing of money in this country and the unfettered spending by the current administration. Now, it's difficult for Jerome Powell. He's stuck in a rock and a hard place because he has to find a way to control that unfettered spending from an administration that, if it stays in power, he'll likely keep his job. Now, if the administration changes in November, there's a very good chance that perhaps Powell will be gone. There's a question that came in about that, which we'll get to later on in the show here. But before we get to that, let's take a look at what the markets did yesterday. They were driven upward by that very positive inflation report that we got yesterday, leading traders to confidence that the Fed could begin cutting rates this year. Now, by mid-morning, all 3 major indices were positive. The NASDAQ actually approached 2 full percentage points at various times throughout the day. Before the Fed announcement, the Dow crept towards the flat line, and just before the bell, it sunk below. The Fed announcement didn't really change what the markets were trajecting to do throughout the day. The Dow ended up finishing just below the flat line. The S&P 500 finished almost a full percentage point above the flat line, and the NASDAQ was over 1.5% above the flat line. The 10-year Treasury yields finished at 4.3% at the close, down a little bit from their previous numbers. Oil was just over $78 a barrel at the close. The major indices right now have opened relatively positively, a little bit mixed again. The Dow is just below the flat line a little bit. S&P 500 is 0.3 above, and the NASDAQ, following course of yesterday, sure enough, is up about 0.75 percentage point. That was encouraged because we did get a relatively encouraging inflation report this morning. PPI, Producer Price Index. Keep in mind that just measures the prices that producers get for their goods and services in the open market. It declined 0.2% for the month, and experts are believing that this could add another sort of piece of evidence that inflation might be pulling back just a little bit here. So that number came out this morning. We'll see what kind of impact that has on the markets here. A couple of headlines that I want to get to here, folks, before we get to the ag report, and Craig Haugaard is back. It's good to have Craig back. This first one, and keep in mind, I'm just going to read this headline. I'm going to try my best not to give any opinion on it because I think the headline, frankly, speaks for itself. So here's the headline. New poll reveals dismal approval rating for Biden's handling of debt forgiveness, even among debtors. So even those who are in debt and would financially benefit from Biden's debt forgiveness are not pleased with it. Again, just reading these headlines here. So Biden's massive student debt student debt scheme may not have produced the intended result of boosting his dismal approval ratings. Interesting. A new poll found only 3 in 10 of adults approve of the president's handling of student debt relief, while 4 in 10 disapprove. Now, surprisingly, only 36% of student loan borrowers approve. 34% of student loan borrowers, people who would benefit, disapprove of this. Broken down by political party, Democrats 55% approve, 18% disapprove, 28% are neutral. Republicans only 9% approve, 71% disapprove, 28% are neutral. And independents pretty even split with the approval and the disapproval. 18% approve, 28% disapprove, 54% are neutral. Since taking office, Biden has put U.S. taxpayers on the hook for $153 billion worth of student loan debt for 4.3 million Americans. And the president's overall approval rating actually plunged to an all-time low earlier this week, 37.4% on Monday. That's according to a poll data publisher. Folks, it's very interesting here to see this. And again, I'm trying not to give my opinion here. I absolutely could and have strong opinions about this. But here's what I'll say. The only thing that I'll say here is I'm very encouraged to see that those numbers of the 36% student loan borrowers approve, 34% disapprove. Not many people are approving this, and many people who are borrowing money and who would financially benefit are disapproving of this. I think people are starting to wake up a little bit, and I think that's a very good thing. One more headline here, and I will share some thoughts on this one. The headline is this: the Biden administration apparently shot down $24 billion worth of pay raises for enlisted troops after spending 7 times more than that on Ukraine. Very interesting here. Biden administration said this week it strongly opposes this proposed pay hike for service members. The White House said it would not support this permanent pay hike until it's had a chance to conduct a compensation review, whatever that means. The 2025 National Defense Authorization Act proposed that the House Armed Services would direct this $24 billion over 5 years to the military for pay raises. Biden's critics have pointed out that he spent 7 times that much on Ukraine's security and defense. Here's the sad part about this headline, folks. I believe one of the very few legitimate purposes of government spending is for this exact thing, for funding the military. American exceptionalism and defense is a good thing. The people of this country, our tax dollars should be expected to pay for our defense. I think military spending is one of the few legitimate reasons for taxes and for government spending. National defense, domestic protection, police, judicial defense, infrastructure, those are all good reasons for taxes. And so this is one of the best. And, you know, I'd have been able to have a little bit more respect for the 46th president if, in the midst of all the money he's spending on silly things, he could have also found a couple dollars here and there to spend on our military. Apparently not. And this is really sad, folks. And I think if this tells people on the fence anything, it tells them that it is clear that this administration, and I'm not pointing the finger just at Biden, but at all the people who are behind him, this administration hates American interests, and that's never a good thing for people in an empire, and that's a sign. Sadly, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but that's a sign of troubled waters ahead for nations when its own leaders don't even love the country anymore. We got the Ag Report coming up here, folks, and then we'll get to more financial issues. We've got a couple questions to get to. Here's Craig Haugaard with today's Ag Report.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for June 13th. Well, for corn, the June USDA report turned out to be a non-event as they left the balance sheets unchanged. With that report out of the way, the trade reverted back to trading slow farmer selling and firming basis levels from processors. At the closing bell, July corn was 4 3/4 cents higher at $4.54 1/4. Soybean bulls were caught by surprise when USDA made only minimal changes to the Brazilian production numbers. Here in the U.S., we saw the projected ending stocks grow by 10 million bushels up to 455 million. And that number probably will continue to weigh on prices. Yesterday's close found the July beans 3/4 cent lower at $11.77 1/4. Wheat saw the USDA make minimal changes to the balance sheet while they trimmed 5 million metric tons off the Russian crop. All of this was pretty much as expected, and once again, path of least resistance medicine seems to be lower, at least until we get past harvest here in the U.S. Yesterday's close found Minneapolis July wheat 10.5 cents lower, $6.68 1/4. Kansas City dropped by 17 3/4 cents, closing at $6.37 1/4. And went Chicago 9.5 cents lower at $6.17 per bushel. Cotton futures saw the USDA cut projected exports by 500,000 bales, and that took the old carryout down to 2.85 million bales. At the close, we had July futures down 99 points, closing at 71.72. Livestock futures were mixed. We had August live cattle 60 cents lower at $178, 32.5 cents per hundredweight. August feeder cattle were 7.5 cents lower at $257, 57.5 cents per hundred, while the August lean hog futures were 85 cents higher, ending the day at $89.95 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures found themselves working back towards the recent contract highs. At the close, July futures were 7 points better at $20.60. This has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
Fear and uncertainty can cause us to hold things tightly and rely on ourselves. But during uncertain times, as believers in Christ, we are called to surrender fully to our sovereign God. The call to surrender to Jesus is one step in our growth in holiness. And it doesn't just mean you give over a few things. It means He gets it all, including our finances, our investments. Learn a biblically responsible investment strategy proven over 25 years. Keep the money God has entrusted to you out of companies that participate in things that God detests. Fully surrender. Become a Financial Issues Partner today. Learn more by going to financialissues.org/join. That's financialissues.org/join.
Are you new to biblically responsible investing? As Christians, we have the responsibility to be good stewards of the money God has entrusted us with. As we invest in the market, we want to make sure that the companies we invest in aren't taking money and using it to fund industries that grieve the heart of God, like pornography, abortion, gambling, or the LGBT agenda. That doesn't mean a company must be a Christian company to be biblically responsible. It means that company is solely focused on excellence in its industry and doesn't support things that God hates. To learn more about biblically responsible investing and how you can put it to practice in your portfolio, go to financialissues.org.
The mission of Financial Issues is to expose Jesus for all He is, all He means, and all that He can do.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Folks, to wrap up that conversation we were having before the Ag Report there, it is really sad, seeing our national leaders and our commander-in-chief having such disrespect for our military. And I just want to say here at the ministry what high value we have for our military members. And if you're watching this and you're a retired military member or current, we want to thank you so very much for your faithful service to our country and for your sacrificial example of what it means to lay down one's life for one's country and one's friends. And of course, you find your greatest example of that in the Lord Jesus Christ. So from the bottom of our hearts here at our ministry, thank you so very much. And I am truly sorry that you have not gotten the respect in this country that you should for laying down your life for this country. But we thank you and we stand with you so much, and we appreciate so much our military members. It's just something that we have a very high value and very high regard for. So thank you so much for your service for our country, all of you military members. Hey, partners, a couple announcements for you. Check out Shana's commentary and our partner alert from earlier this week. We sent out a partner alert with some just some suggestions for you. So please take a look at those when you have the chance. Also, mark your calendars. We got a conference call next week. In that alert, you saw the date for it. It's going to be June 19th, Wednesday. We don't have a time for it yet, but we'll get that to you as quick as we can. But mark your calendars. Conference call June 19th, Wednesday next week. Make sure to do that. I don't do this often, but I do want to remind you, we have a Friday morning Bible study that meets every Friday at 6:30 Eastern time. And I would want to invite all of you to join us. It's something that Dan started that passed to me when Dan went home to be with the Lord, and it's just been one of the great joys of my life getting to sit down with you all. We're obviously not physically together, but connected over technology and study the scriptures together. We're starting a new book tomorrow, so we're starting the book of 2 Timothy. It's a great time to join and to invite someone. So check out the resources tab on the website. Go to join our Bible study. It's free. You don't have to be a partner to join. Very easy to join, very non-threatening. And I did send out a Bible study survey earlier this week. So if you're a regular on the Bible study and haven't got a chance to fill that out yet, go ahead and do that. But as for now, folks, let's get back to some financial issues here. 610-363-1110 is the number to call. Let's get to a couple questions we have. Grant, what do we have there? Let's start with Robert in Texas. What does Robert have for us?
Yeah, so Robert has a question about Kevin Freeman is pushing to get transactional gold and silver plan through the Texas Senate to help protect against the coming CBDC. Our local and very strong grassroots organization is supporting this as well. Apparently, there is something called a pirate money clause in the Constitution for such things. Would passing such a plan have an effect on our traditional stance and beliefs in precious metals as investments? What are your thoughts?
That's a good question, Robert. I appreciate that. This is something that we did talk about a couple months ago on the show, I think it was. But let me answer your question first by just reminding you what our stance on gold is. We feel like it's perfectly okay to have a little bit of precious metals as an investment, but we believe it's unwise to put all your hope in gold. So it's one of those things where we say absolutely feel free to have a little bit, but don't do what so many other conservative podcasts and outlets do, which is say gold is your only hope. We don't believe that. We believe it's far, far better for you to be well diversified. And if you're looking for something kind of like as an end times precaution that you can take, you'd be far better stocking up on food and rations and a place to live and ammo and different things like that than you would be to find as many gold bars as you can. Dan always used to talk about how in that kind of hypothetical scenario, and perhaps it's not hypothetical because someday we probably will see something like that, if not in our lifetime, maybe later on, but you'd be far better to have a tool to barter with. And so that's just something just to remind you of. If you're going to have gold, a little bit of gold in your portfolio, not a bad thing at all. Just a reminder, hold it yourself. Don't make it any more than a small percentage of your portfolio. And just remember, too, it doesn't pay dividends. It's been hitting some highs recently, but it's still extremely rare for gold to hit highs. So it's not really a very profitable investment option for you. And then most importantly, like we just said, it's not going to protect you from market volatility in that end time situation. Once again, you're much far better stocking up on enough emergency cash to fill up your gas tank and get somewhere you need to go, food to feed your family for a few weeks, perhaps a natural water source, a place to go for safety, things like that. Now, Robert, to your question, would passing such a plan have any effect on our traditional stance and beliefs in precious metals? I don't know the answer to that for sure, to be honest with you, but if I had to guess, I would say probably not, because the passage of such a bill like this, it could be good for the nation, absolutely, assuming it could get nationwide levels of support. But it seems to me, Robert, that it wouldn't necessarily change the foundational qualities of gold as an investment. And that's really what we view it as at the ministry here, is gold as an investment. This would change its stance perhaps as a currency, but not as much as an investment. So it would still be tough to sell. It would still pay no dividends, and it would still not really provide that end time support like so many conservative podcasts claim that it would. So I'd encourage you, Robert, definitely look into it some more. And by the way, me saying this is not saying anything negative about Kevin Freeman or the work he does on Blaze Television. I've watched some of his shows. He does some great work. And again, gold is not bad, but I think when we're thinking about gold and precious metals, we have to remember the phrase, too much of a good thing is still too much. That phrase is not always true. For example, too much of the gospel is not too much. Too much of Jesus Christ is not too much. But when it comes to gold, I think it does ring true. That too much of a good thing can be too much. And so with gold, we would say have a little bit of it, but not too much. I hope that makes sense, Robert. That's a good question. What else do we have here, Grant, from our listeners?
All right, and then from Pete, a listener recently criticized FISM for using Facebook and other social media. Seth did a good job of explaining why using a non-BRI company's services is generally okay, even though it's not okay to invest in it, and that's not doing business with the company was good. I'll bet the sender used a smartphone, a PC, or a laptop made by a woke or non-BRI company or software created by one of these in order to send his complaint.
Pete, I appreciate that very much. And I also do appreciate that person for giving that criticism there, because, you know, it is a tricky thing. I mean, this is a tough topic, and we talked a little bit about it. I think it was on yesterday's show. We talked about stewardship versus patronage. But yeah, you're exactly right. You know, we have to draw the line somewhere. And we believe it's not morally wrong to use a computer, to use a laptop, to buy goods from companies that are partaking in these things that we talk against often. Where we believe it is wrong, and the Bible draws the line on, is investments, is putting your money to work in these companies. That is your money. Really, it's God's money. It's the money that he has stewarded to you for you to steward well, and it would not be stewarding that money well if you allowed it to grow in an illicit way. You know, think about this. If you're investing in one of those wicked companies, and they're profiting off the murder of babies, you are now making a profit off the murder of babies. That's essentially blood money. And that's wicked. We believe that is absolutely wicked. The Bible speaks against that, and so we want to take no part in that. But it's a different thing than using the good or service from that company. So now, of course, it absolutely is a it'd be called a matter of conscience. You know, certainly if your conscience is pricked and you say, you know what, I can't even partake in these things, we would say, God bless you. That's awesome. Certain things like computers, it's going to be really hard to find a computer that's not made by Microsoft or Apple. It's going to be really hard to find it. There are people out there who know of it. Let us know, absolutely. But that's part of why we draw the line there, you know. So, Pete, that's a good comment. I appreciate the encouragement also, brother. What else do we have there, Grant?
All right, and then we also have a question, or rather a statement/question from Peter and Josie.
Sure.
And you can mention the podcast if you want to, Seth, but I was watching the podcast, and he mentioned that the government bureaucrats view the presidential appointees as the summer help, who are here for a time and then leave. All the bureaucrats need to do is wait them out. Can Trump, if he gets elected, fire the people that are working against his efforts? I was under the impression that Obama did just that when he got elected. So Seth, can Trump drain the swamp?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question, Grant, and Peter and Josie, definitely. And I think you're right under the impression that Obama did just that when he got elected. Here's how it works for the president. So I think sometimes we forget just how powerful the president is because we don't have a king or an emperor. But the president is very powerful. I mean, that executive branch carries some weight. And so this question actually came about, I think, from several days ago when we were talking about, as kind of become one of the meta themes of our show in 2024, is what's going to happen with the Federal Reserve based on the upcoming election. And we're kind of the mindset that we feel like if Trump wins, he's going to clean house. And that means Jerome Powell out of there. You know, this is something that is never actually been tested before. So we have not been able to see something like a president get rid of a Federal Reserve chairman in, as far as I can understand, in the history of the country. Now, if someone knows differently on the chat, please do correct me there. But to answer your question, P&J, I believe Trump, if he gets elected, I think he can fire the people who are working against his efforts. I think there's some political gaming that has to happen there. And I don't mean gaming in a bad way. I mean, you know, when you're in politics, sometimes you have to play the game a little bit. You have to make friends with strange bedfellows. As Shakespeare said, politics makes for strange bedfellows. Sometimes you find yourself in strange alliances in order to accomplish positive political goals. But I do think that Trump will have quite a bit of power to be able to do this, as we saw Biden wielding his power. If you recall, back in the beginning of his administration in 2021, he signed all those ridiculous executive orders. The president has a lot of power. And that power can be used for good or evil, for sure. But I do think we have to be very aware of the fact that this relationship between the executive branch and the Federal Reserve, something's going to happen with it. Something is going to give. Now, a lot of that does depend on what's going to happen in 2024, of course. But to answer that question, P&J, I do think that there is some level of, not just Trump, but any president has the ability to be able to wield that sort of power, because the executive power in this country is pretty mighty, for sure. That's a good question there, P&J. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all your questions, folks. I appreciate seeing you on the chat there as well. Tomorrow morning, God willing, we'll be back. Shana will be back tomorrow. Of course, again, if you want to join us for Bible study, 6:30 Eastern time, I hope to see you there. But just a reminder, folks, as we see all this craziness happening around us, everything with our finances and with the economy and with politics, let us remember who is on the throne. And it gives us great comfort to know that the Lord Jesus Christ, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, that he reigns eternally. And he is the one that we will bow the knee to. I pray that you bow the knee to him willingly in this life. God bless you all. Remember, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with it. And until tomorrow, I'm Seth Udinsky, and we'll see you then for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.